Welcome to Camnet TV Main News. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. The headlines. PF CADRE slapped with a 2-year jail term for hacking a UPND cadre. Government recruits addition 496 teachers. African countries urged to renew commitment towards Agenda 2063. And in international news, World Health Organization to reconvene emergency panel on monkeypox. And in sports, MAKEMBO anticipates Copper Queens to win the World Cup. Details coming through after this commercial. And now the main news in detail. Lusaka Magistrate Fides Hamaondo has dismissed an application stopping a state witness from testifying in a case in which a Lusaka couple is accused of owing 51 houses, property believed to have been corruptly gained after she found that there was no evidence to show a lawyer and client relationship between one of the accused and the witness. This is in a matter in which Charles Luyana, 51, and his wife Susan Loyana, 46, both civil servants, have been jointly charged with 2 counts of corrupt practices involving concealment and possession of property suspected to be process of crime worth more than 37 million kwacha. When the matter came up for ruling, Magistrate Hamaundu allowed for the court to hear a witness testimony after establishing that there was no evidence to show that the accused and the state witness shared a lawyer-client relationship.
An attempt to stop one of the witnesses from testifying in their case, in which they are accused of concealment and corrupt practices, has flopped as the Lusaka Subordinate Court Thursday morning dismissed an application by a Lusaka-based couple said to own the infamous 51 houses located in Chalala area. In the last court session, the accused through their lawyer objected for a state witness to testify in the case on account that they shared a lawyer-client relationship with the said witness. However, this morning when the matter came up for ruling, Magistrate Fides Hamaondo dismissed the application on ground that the submission that the state filed on behalf of the witness did not show any lawyer-client relationship that could warrant the witness not to give testimony in the case. This is in a case in which a Lusaka couple is charged with corrupt practices involving concealment and possession of property suspected of being process of crime. The accused are Charles Loyana, a senior accountant at the Ministry of Finance, and his wife Susan Loyana, an assistant accountant at the Ministry of Works and Supply. In the first count, it is alleged that between 1st January 2012 and 30th June 2019, the 2 accused persons, while working with other people unknown, concealed 51 properties valued at 37 million kwacha. The accused pleaded not guilty to the charge. Trial continues in the case. Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
A 27-year-old opposition Patriotic Front cadre has been sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for hacking a United Party for National Development cadre on the head with a machete prior to the August 12, 2021 general elections. Lusaka magistrate Alice Walusiko sentenced Martin Kalenga to jail for 2 years on account that the injury he caused on the complainant Levi Kabaso was life-threatening and he needed some form of punishment despite him being a first-time offender who deserved leniency. This is in a matter in which Martin Kalenga, PF, was accused of unlawfully wounding Levi Kabaso, UPND, on the 5th of July 2021.
She couldn't help it but cry uncontrollably after the Lusaka's magistrate court Thursday morning sentenced a 27-year-old son who is believed to be a PF member to 2 years imprisonment for hacking a UPND member last year during the election period. Thursday, Magistrate Alice Walusiko was forced to send Martin Kalenga to a correctional facility for 24 months after she found him guilty of unlawful wounding a UPND member, Levi Kabaso, on the 5th of July 2021. According to court records, the convict was said to have hacked the complainant Kabaso from the UPND with a machete prior to the 12th August 2021 general elections. Magistrate Walusiko, in a judgment this morning, noted that the convict was the first offender who deserved the court lenience. However, looking at the assault he caused on the complainant, he deserved some form of punishment as the injury caused was life-threatening. The court also took into consideration that the atmosphere of the period when the offense occurred was critical, however did mention that politics should not lead individuals to hacking each other, as politics is about different ideologies at play. The magistrate also added that Zambia is a peaceful country and it will be regrettable if the country allows situations where people must attack and hug each other because of politics, further adding that the court has a duty to bring this to a stop before sending 27-year-old Kalenga to 24 months in prison. Magistrate Walusiko told the convict to be an ambassador of goodwill in the next general elections. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Opposition Patriotic Front Acting President Given Lubinda has described the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe as a great leader who played a huge role in partnership that Zambia and Japan continue to share. Speaking at the Japanese embassy in Lusaka, where he was signing in a book of condolences for the late former Japanese Prime Minister who was assassinated last week, Mr. Lubinda says Zambia will not forget the tireless effort that the late played in enhancing cooperation between Zambia and Japan. He says Zambia will remember him as a man who passionately involved in facilitating the construction of the Tokyo Road in Lusaka's Kawata constituency.
For the tireless efforts he put in enhancing cooperation between Zambia and Japan through the Japanese embassy and particularly through JICA. Those who have been around long enough will recall that Abe was also partly responsible for the decision to invest in the ring road in Kawata constituency, the road that is now referred to as Tokyo Way. When the Japanese requested the Lusaka City Council to name that road Tokyo Way, there was some resistance. But I have to be happy now, today, that all the councillors at that time agreed that we should honor the Japanese people for the friendship they've shared with Zambia by naming that road Tokyo Way. I just hope that as we remember Abe Shinzo, the government of the day will look at going to complete the projects that Abe was responsible for, the Luangwa Bridge, and I hope that they can also go and resurface Tokyo Way because it is now becoming a deplorable road. It is not well maintained, and I hope that the Ministry of Infrastructure and Urban Development will take this opportunity to go and resurface that road.
The New Heritage Party says the move taken by ministers and members of parliament to declare their assets will aid the fight against corruption. Reacting to the report that 57 members of legislature have declared their assets and liabilities, party vice president Samuel Kansanka says unlike in the past, where most people in public offices kept their wealth hidden, the move is commendable. Meanwhile, political analyst Aaron Silwale says auditing mechanisms should be put in place to prevent false declarations, stating that false claims of wealth has been made by individuals in the past in view of acquiring wealth corruptly.
Studies from prominent institutions of higher learning in Africa show that the continent as a whole has remained poor despite a few countries standing out, mainly owing to the cancer of corruption that has continued to make politicians richer and the ordinary citizens poorer. Democratic countries like Zambia have therefore put in place mechanisms to aid the fight against corruption, among them the requirement that all persons holding high public office declare their assets and liabilities before or after leaving public office. This provision has not been fully adhered to over the recent years, as few individuals have come forward to declare their wealth. The recent move by some politicians to declare their assets and liabilities to the office of the Chief Justice has attracted various opinions on the matter. Among the political figures in high office said to have declared their assets so far is Speaker of the National Assembly Nelly Muti, with a net worth of over 380 million kwacha, and Chawama Member of Parliament Tasila Lungu, with an asset worth of slightly over 6 million kwacha, among others. In an interview, New Heritage Party Vice President Mr. Samuel Kasanka has added his voice over the matter.
It's good that more and more are declaring, but there's no reason why everybody else who is supposed to declare shouldn't declare immediately. There is no reason for a tax holiday on simple things like declaring what you own. So it's good that people are declaring, more and more declaring, but let everybody else declare because it is a requirement of our law.
Meanwhile, a clergyman, Bishop John Mambo, has also spoken out.
Let us all declare like the ministers now are declaring the assets and those in public office. Let them declare genuinely. It's not right to say you have 50 million which you don't have, and then tomorrow you go and accumulate that 50 million through dubious means, and overnight you become few, because that's what we have seen of our politician. Our politician come from a shanty compound or a village with one pair of shoe, with no bicycle, but within 6 months they are filthy rich. The poor become so poor, the rich become filthy rich, like in India. As a result, they even forget their constitution. As a result, they can't even pick a phone to answer an electorate, that one who stood in the queue to vote for them for hours.
In a phone interview, a political scientist, Mr. Aaron Siwale, says these declarations should be subjected to audits to verify how authentic they are.
Also, we need an institution that could be tasked with verifying that indeed those public office bearers have come with those resources that they have. Why do I say so? It could be possible. Remember, we're just dealing with human beings who are occupying these offices, and they have previewed a lot of opportunities that may come their way. So they don't understand that if they declare, it is possible that they'll block their ego. So at some point, people could exactly over-declare what they actually do not have.
The declaration of assets and liabilities of persons in high office is stipulated in Article 263 of the Zambian Constitution. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
The Network for Young People Against Violence has thanked former Republican President Edgar Lungu for permitting lawmakers to remove his presidential immunity in order to promote a fair fight against corruption. Speaking to journalists Thursday, Executive Director Moses Kalonde says the stance taken by the former head of state has proven that he has nothing to hide from law enforcers, hence his immunity should be removed. Mr. Kalonde says Patriotic Front members should immediately start putting in place measures that will allow a smooth procedure once the motion is presented at Parliament. He has since urged UPND members of Parliament to support this motion once presented in order to show patriotism and parties' willingness to rise above partisan politics.
An organization, Network for Young People Against Violence, through their representative Moses Kalonde, has expressed happiness that the former Republican President Edgar Lungu is willing to have his immunity removed in order to promote the fight against corruption, which has so far intensified since the ruling United Party for National Development UPND formed government. Mr. Kalonde says it is admirable that the former head of state has volunteered to surrender his presidential immunity and give an opportunity like his family and PF members have to face the law and prove their innocence.
We are happy that the former president, Mr. Edgar Lungu, on 12 August 2022, while addressing his supporters at his residence, which the Zambian people have graciously provided to him and his family through their ad-end taxes, did indicate that he has nothing to hide and was ready to face the law so that he can prove his innocence, and as such he does not need the immunity so it can be taken away.
He has further appealed to the Republican President Hakainde Hichilema to instruct all UPND members of Parliament to support the motion to remove the immunity of the former head of state once the motion is presented to Parliament.
We hope and trust that this directive by Mr. Edgar Lungu will be taken seriously by the leader of the opposition, Honorable Mumpibile, and the opposition chief whip, Honorable Campion, so that the former president can freely cleanse himself of the stigma that he committed a lot of wrong things to the Zambian people during his time in office. We would also like to appeal to His Excellency the Republican President, President Hakainde Hichilema, to instruct all the UPND MPs to support the motion to remove the immunity of Mr. Edgar Lungu as it is presented to Parliament by the PF MPs.
He has since reminded the former head of state that the law does not allow for the former presidents to enjoy their benefits if they are still involved in active politics. He has since asked Mr. Lungu to tell the nation why he stands on this matter. Messi Chanika reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, says the recent degrading of Zambia by the World Bank from a lower middle income to a low income country will open up doors to more donors to come into the country. Addressing the media Thursday during a joint press statement with the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, JCTR Manager for Social and Economic Development, Chama Mundia, says Zambia has in a long time relied on loans which have been difficult to pay back in the past few years. Meanwhile, CSPR Zambia Programs Manager Adim Musosa has applauded government's move to conduct more consultations on genetically modified organisms, GMO foods.
Chief among the mandates of any government is to ensure that all citizens across the country have access to 3 decent meals a day, as the right to food is among the basic human rights. The ability of majority of citizens in any country to access decent food is therefore used as one of the measures to assess its progress towards reaching a status of development. The recent declaration by the World Bank that Zambia has now downgraded from a lower middle income to a low-income country, considering the failure by most families to access basic needs, has therefore sparked concerns in the country. Addressing the media Thursday during a joint press briefing with the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR Manager for Social and Economic Development, Ms. Chama Mundia, says this situation presents both challenges and opportunities for Zambia.
The situation presents both opportunities and challenges for Zambia. The country is likely to benefit, first of all, from increased donor aid flow towards social sectors, as well as grants and low-interest loans for growth sectors. It will also, to a larger extent, enable Zambia achieve its debt restructuring objectives. However, this is likely to stifle economic growth and decent job creation in the short to medium term due to the quality of foreign investments that the country is likely to attract.
She further says there is urgent need to put in place policies that will address the poverty situation in Zambia, stating that the reduction in inflation in the country from 10.3% to 9.7%, as witnessed recently, does not trickle down to the common man, as prices of basic commodities are still beyond the reach of most citizens.
JCTR surveys have established that the cost of living is so high that families adopt coping strategies such as reducing the number of meals a day to 2 or 1, renting poor housing facilities, inability to meet costs of essential drugs when sick, and failure to meet education costs. This negatively affects families' abilities to live dignified lives and perpetuates a vicious cycle of poverty.
Meanwhile, CSPR Zambia Programs Manager Mr. Eddie Musosa says it is sad to note that despite Zambia having a Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, no projects have been put in place in response to climate change on the ground using Constituency Development Fund (CDF). He has also applauded the move by government to conduct more consultations before allowing genetically modified organisms (GMO) foods.
The dangers of promoting GMOs are that they can be harmful to the human body, and they can also promote the multinational monopoly of seed, grain, animal, and the chemical market farming, which in the end can also end up eroding the indigenous seed systems which have long existed within our communities. Hence, as civil society organizations in this regard, we are encouraging the government to promote traditional and nutrient-rich foods that have got a long history of supporting health and wellness. But this is more sustainable as they also give back to the environment.
The civil society organizations say they will continue to monitor progress made in relevant sectors in the country so as to offer sound policy advice for the development of the country. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Regional Young Women Network Chairperson Thokozile Banda has called on heads of states attending the African Union Summit to enhance ways of ending early child marriages. Speaking to the media in Lusaka Thursday, Ms. Banda notes that early marriages have contributed to the high poverty levels in Africa. She says many girls and boys have dropped out of school due to early marriages, which has resulted in them being unproductive, hence not positively contributing to the development of their countries.
March 9, 2022, the Republican President Hakainde Hichilema directed law enforcers to step in and arrest culprits of early child marriages. The president, who is also the African Union champion of ending child marriages, said government had restored the rule of law and those marrying off young girls would be visited by the law. In seconding this objective, Regional Chairperson for Young Women Network, spearheading countries like Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe, Thokozile Banda has called for complete eradication of the vice, urging heads of states attending the ongoing African Union Summit to find solutions of ending early child marriages in Africa.
The traditional leaders, religious leaders, and talk about issues that are affecting us as young women. And I feel like that was actually one of the first steps and should be one of the biggest steps that we should prioritize in Zambia, by sitting down and hearing what exactly is happening at the core, because there's nothing for us without us. So if you're able to speak for us and mitigate certain things, you must be able to listen to what the young women have to say, what is going on the ground, and see how best we can mitigate these issues. So the issue of ending child marriage is actually something that I am glad has been prioritized.
And the Non-Governmental Gender Organization Coordinating Council Executive Director Annie Mbewe says it will take concerted effort to completely end early child marriages in Africa.
Is that the summit emphasizes issues of gender, women's empowerment, and the rights of women. women, as we all know, still remain at the periphery in terms of economic inclusion, social inclusion, and generally the development agenda. It's therefore important.
We apologize for the sound. Getting on to our next story, Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology and Innovation, Professor Mohamed Barkhosn, has underscored the need for the African Union to adequately finance the Pan-African University, which offers scholarships to students from 51 African countries. Professor Barkhosn says despite the Pan-African University playing a critical role in steering the African development agenda, it still faces financial challenges to fully execute its mandate. The professor adds that the position of director of the university has remained vacant in a long time and wants the AU to urgently table the matter.
A project to have a Pan-African University in Zambia. I hope so, but let me just give you another maybe element of information that may clarify a little bit. When the member states decide, when the heads of states decided to create the university, they decided that there will be a hub, an institute in each of the sub-regions of the continent. So each sub-region, the countries of the sub-region decided amongst themselves where to put the institute of the Pan-African University. For instance, in East Africa, they decided it would be Kenya. For Southern Africa, they decided, SADC, Zambia is a member of SADC, isn't it? So in SADC, they decided that it would be the space science in Cape Town. North Africa, they decided it would be Algeria, and Algeria decided it would be University of Tlemcen, which is a small city outside the capital, actually. And so on and so forth. And for West Africa, they decided it would be Nigeria, and Nigeria decided it would be in Ibadan. It's not even in Abuja, which is the capital of Nigeria.
In other news, government recruits 30,496 teachers more, a teacher beyond its targeted 30,000 for the 2022 teacher recruitment exercise. Speaking during a media update on the exercise Thursday afternoon, Minister of Education Douglas Siakalima disclosed that recruitment of 30,496 teachers will reduce the high teacher-pupil ratio, standing 1:58 for primary and 1:38 for secondary schools, which is against the required standard. Meanwhile, Teaching Service Commission Chairperson Daphne Chimuka assured the nation that the recruitment process was conducted in a transparent manner.
It has been a journey full of anxiety for the past 6 months for teachers who applied for the 2022 teacher recruitment exercise. In the spirit of bridging the gap in the teacher-pupil ratio, teachers can now breathe a sigh of relief as Education Minister Douglas Siakalima has announced the completion of the recruitment exercise and says the names of the successive applicants will be published Friday, 15th July 2022. The Education Minister has disclosed that a total of 30,496 teachers have been recruited, with Eastern Province recording the highest of the teachers recruited, standing at 4,187.
492 announced that government has allocated additional resources for the recruitment of more teachers. These will be selected from the 100,877 candidates that are already in our database. I am delighted to announce that the government has concluded the recruitment of 30,496 teachers, and the names of the successive applicants will be published tomorrow, 15th July 2022, across credible print and electronic platforms. The selected teachers will collect their appointment letters from the District Education Board Secretaries' offices across the country. Thereafter, recruited teachers are expected to begin processing their appointment documents in readiness to report.
And Teaching Service Commission Chairperson Daphne Chimuka assured the citizens that the process was conducted in a transparent manner in accordance with the Commission's Act of 2016.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to announce that the teacher recruitment, which spanned over 6 months, was undertaken in a transparent and meticulous manner, using an automated teacher recruitment system. From what I have highlighted, you will appreciate that the process of extracting 30,000 teachers from the 108,877 applications which were received countrywide was not only objectively done, but also done in accordance with
the announcement of the completion of the recruitment exercise has seen education stakeholders add their voices.
When teachers go in the field, they should induct the teachers. They should take on the teachers and walk them through rules and regulations governing schools. And also to the newly recruited teachers, I want to urge our children. Teaching is a noble profession. They should be serious.
And his government for actually walking the talk on this matter. We got worried when there was silence, but today the minister has launched the publication of names. Tomorrow, names are going to...
The recruited 30,496 teachers is against a total of 100,877 teachers who applied for the recruitment exercise. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News in Lusaka.
Republican President Hakainde Hichilema has reaffirmed the government's commitment in ensuring that it uplifts the socio-economic welfare of citizens in the country. Speaking at State House Thursday during the special investiture ceremony for the Order of the Eagle of Zambia, President Hichilema says upholding the rule of law is the strongest pillar of socio-economic development for citizens. Meanwhile, President Hichilema has honored Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president of Nigeria, former president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson, and Ernest Koroma, the former president of Sierra Leone, for their outstanding work and promotion and advancement of democracy. The 3 former foreign heads of states were also honored for the delivery of democratic dividends for their citizens. President Hichilema says the former heads of states have distinguished themselves in their own countries on the African continent and beyond.
President Obasanjo said, we caught you by surprise. I wish we had a deeper surprise than the one we gave you today, because you deserve it. You deserve it. You're a good example of us who are in office today. We have a lot to learn. You are a good example. The 3 of you, President Motlanthe, Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, a good example to us. I must include in there former Vice Presidents, our own former Vice Presidents. I see 2 of them. Are they 3 yet? 3 of them. The usual 2, and now Vice President Guy Scott. We want to link you to this group, to work with this group, because there's still a lot of work to be done to keep our continent peaceful, secure, so we can focus all our resources, energy, time to the social and economic development agenda, to uplift the lives of our people. That's it. That's the story. So I publicly ask our former Vice President, our President who is watching, former President.
Kids Alive Zambia Country Director Beston Banda has alleged that circumstantial children in Zambia are facing discrimination, hence appealing to the government to look into their plight. In an interview with Camnet News, Mr. Banda states that circumstantial children in Zambia are not recognized, which has resulted in their rights being violated. Meanwhile, Kids Alive International President Connie Dukes says circumstantial children, like are like any other children and they deserve to enjoy their lives.
Every child deserves to live free from bondage of hunger, abuse, and exploitation. This applies to circumstantial children who are born from correctional facilities. The fact that a child is born from a correctional facility does not imply that they are less human. Correctional facilities restrict movement of children as they are always inside the facilities, meaning that they do not know life outside the correctional facility. Kids Alive Zambia is committed to the biblical truth that compels them to assist orphans and vulnerable children. It is therefore vital to have several stakeholders that create a responsive system for circumstantial children in curbing the current discrimination against them. Beston Banda is Kids Alive Zambia Country Director.
Campaign, so to speak, to think about the children in prison. You know, they may be forgotten, as we are saying, but they are humans and they have rights, and those rights must be thought of. You know, we must think about how these children can enjoy their rights even while they are in prison. You know, so it's not their fault that they're in prison. They found themselves in that situation. But let's see what we can all do to help so that these children can enjoy their life.
And Kids Alive International President says it is vital to recognize circumstantial children in Zambia and the world at large.
Well, as we've heard today in the presentation, the biggest challenge is a life in prison where they grow up conforming to the life in prison of lineups and alarms, and it's just not an environment that's ever been dreamed of for a child to thrive.
Circumstantial children face a number of hardships such as proper water and sanitation that is considerable for their well-being. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet News, Lusaka.
You're watching Camnet TV Main News. We take our first set of commercials. We'll be back with more after this.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes, and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
Welcome back. Continue with the rest of the main news. Zambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Stanley Kakubo, has implored African Union member countries to renew their commitment to Agenda 2063. Mr. Kakubo says Zambia is willing to promote intra-Africa trade, which he says is vital towards developing the continent. He was speaking during the official opening of the 41st African Union Ordinary Session of the African Union during the AU Media Conference Province in Lusaka Monday. Mr. Kakubo also points out that the continental body needs to put in place measures to cultivate peace and security, which he said is vital towards Africa's development. Meanwhile, African Union Commission Chairperson Mausa Faki Mahamat has hailed the Zambian government for taking deliberate measures to successfully host the AU summit. Meanwhile, Senegalese Minister of Foreign Affairs Alsat told South Africa continues to demonstrate its ability to overcome its problems.
The 4th African Union Mid-Year Coordination Meeting is underway in Lusaka at the Mulungushi International Conference Center, Kenneth Kaunda Wing. A number of countries are in attendance and 12 heads of states are expected to gather here. The 41st ordinary session of the Executive Council has been officially opened, and Zambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Stanley Kakubo, emphasized on the need to ensure that the continental body achieves financial independence. Also key among issues was the need to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, achieve peace and stability, among others.
In our economies, there is a need to invest in peace. Therefore, we must act swiftly in silencing the guns on our continent to free Africa of pockets of violence, terrorism, and insurgencies. Chairperson, as we deliberate and approve the allocation of resources in the budget for 2023, it is imperative that we collectively enhance our efforts towards resource mobilization and prudent utilization. We must also strengthen our resolve to curb the illicit financial flows in our continent.
It was also observed that African countries need to improve contributions towards financing the African Union to reduce overdependence on cooperating partners. Meanwhile, African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Muhammad has hailed the Zambian government for taking deliberate measures to successfully host the AU summit. He notes that the meeting comes amid challenges such as the COVID-19 pandemic and conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which has impacted negatively on many African countries. However, he points out that regional integration remains vital to achieving the continent's development and that they continue to identify bottlenecks to fine-tune the process.
Concrete measures in order to ensure that we do something about the dwindling contributions of resources. In fact, if we go in that direction, we will reduce our dependency on our partners, and we obviously want to be as autonomous as we have always aspired. It's not only to mobilize additional resources, but we have to be effective and efficient.
And notably, Senegal holds the presidency of the African Union, and its minister responsible for foreign affairs observed that some countries are facing security challenges that need collective efforts to combat. She also stated that Africa needs to be self-reliant in areas of health, including boosting intra-Africa trade, among others.
We are also going to consider the working documents of the 4th Media Coordination Meeting, and of course we'll be considering the 2023 budget of our union. As far as Africa CDC is concerned, it is worth noting that for the past few years, it has remained the most important Pan-African institution, considering the decisive role that it played in combating and preventing and also providing treatment for COVID-19, and also making sure that there is vaccine coverage on the continent.
Hosting an event of such magnitude, such as the African Union Summit, comes with numerous benefits to the host nation. And during the meeting, the minister also appealed to the delegates to explore Zambia's tourism sector. And this comes with benefits to the local economy. Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
Senior Chief Ntambu of the Lunda people of Mwinlunga district in Northwestern Province has challenged the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to speed up the process of dispersing the Constituency Development Fund in order to avert problems that are affecting various various chiefdoms. Chief Ntambu is of the view that disbursement and utilization of the Constituency Development Fund has hampered the acceleration of developmental projects. He says the slow pace of accessing the funds is worrying and wonders if the people will witness the benefits of the initiative if the situation is left unchecked. The traditional ruler has pleaded with government to accelerate the process of accessing and utilizing the funds for the benefits of everyone. And Mwinlunga constituency member of parliament who paid a courtesy call on the traditional leader Newton Samakai, lobbying for a district status for Ntambu on account of improved infrastructure.
We want the decentralization. Otherwise, it is a defeat. Decentralization will be defeated. I think also, I don't know, we had made requests that certain amounts must be diverted to the chiefdoms directly. The chiefdoms know what they want. They're on the ground. They know better. And we want these things to be done expedited quickly, instead of wasting a lot of time. When the first quarter money comes in, within that quarter, let the money be used. Then wait for the second quarter. Otherwise, like in the state of Mwinlunga district, I think we have had a lot of challenges. Yes. Fund money has been brought into the district, but for it to be dispersed to the project, it takes a lot of time. Maybe we wait for the whole year. And it's not making any sense at all.
Iteji member of Parliament Mtinta Tombo says the move by the Food Reserve Agency FRA to restore all satellite depots in the country has elated farmers in his constituency as they were previously struggling to access the sparsely located depots that were left open in the constituency due to the dilapidated road network in the area. In an interview, the Iteji lawmaker also notes that the decision by FRA to adjust the flour price of maize by 20 kwacha from 160 kwacha per 50 kilogram bag of maize to 180 will also motivate farmers as the cost of doing business has gone up. FRA recently announced the restoration of 1,256 satellite depots across the country, rescinding its earlier decision that only 600 will be operational. The earlier announcement had resulted in an uproar among farmers who were complaining of the potential losses due to increased distance to available depots coupled with fluctuating fuel prices.
The most issue was around the desire that was pushed to reduce the number of depots in the district from about 20-something to 12. And we're excited that the FRI listened to our plea and they've managed to restore the odd number of depots. And for this, the farmers of ETSS, they're excited because what this was going to do, it was going to see to it that the cost of their production goes high and they were going to make very minimal profit from their maize production because it was going to mean they were going to incur a lot of costs to transport their products to the far depots that are spread across the district. But with the maintenance of the old depots and maintaining the number, I think it's a plus for the farmers of ETSS. But more important, it's the greatest news that we got, that the maize floor price was also relooked from 160 and it went to 180. I think for us, we feel that with the kind of a government we borrowed, which has a lot of debt, and we are trying to manage a lot of dynamics to ensure that the economic forces of the country are restored. Having a maize price floor of 180 for the farmers of ETSS, they felt it was somehow a relief. I know government could have done a little bit much better, but coming to 180 from the 160 which was initially announced, I think it gives a bit of a relief.
Plan International African Union has charged that weak border controls in some regions have been the main leading cause of child trafficking. Organization Director of the Liaison Office, Samuel Noga, says the illegal trafficking activities being done at the borders has also resulted in many girls and boys to sexual abuse. Mr. Noga adds that child trafficking cases are difficult to trace because minors are not responsible for their actions.
48 of them have ratified the Children's Charter, 54 of them have ratified the African Protocol on Human and People's Rights. Now, various countries are at various levels of implementing legislation to address sexual harassment. Now, I wouldn't say most countries, and I don't know the specific Zambian context, so whatever I'm saying is because we work within the AU space, and what I'm saying would be generally. But countries are at various levels of implementation of whether governments are doing enough or not also depends on whether people are actually reporting and what is being done to those reports. So it is a continuum. First, people need to report. There need to be safeguarding. There need to be protection of victims. There need to be actual, prosecution of cases. I know in some countries they are good at reporting, but they're not very good on prosecution. I know some
Kabwe Mayor Patrick Chishala has pleaded with the Republican president to consider increasing wages for councillors in the country as a way of motivating better service delivery from local authorities. Speaking during a council meeting, Mr. Chishala says government should look into the conditions of service for councillors, saying the 3,000 kwacha monthly wage is not equivalent to their work input. He adds that despite their jobs being on part-time basis, councillors are the ones in direct contact with citizens at grassroots level. Mr. Chishala is of the view that when councillors are given better service conditions, they will be able to deliver better services to the people.
There is need to motivate the mayors, because decentralization entails that now they have been given a lot of work to do. The people are very close to these people this time around. They are the ones who are receiving a lot of issues in these communities. The money they are given, you give them in the morning at 8, by 8:30 it is gone. Because probably there is a funeral or two funerals, and yet they have got families. We have given them the decentralization which they cannot carry because they have no resources. The conditions of service with this Emoluments Commission that has been put in place, my desire is that His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the father of the nation, must quickly look into the issues concerning the conditions of service for the civic leaders.
We get to our second set of commercials. Coming next is international and sports news.
Team, the trajectory of the business looks very positive, and it looks like we'll be able to launch the ministry. Has so much data.
Mom?
Yes, baby?
It says here, global warming and climate change is caused by the pollution from careless activities of human beings. Wow!
Son, do you know I can turn my phone into a TV remote?
How's that possible?
It's so easy. Check this out.
Be smart, be fast with mega data from Zamtel. Get your 15 GB mobile data for only 100 kwacha, 30 GB mobile data for only 200 kwacha, and your 70 GB LTE data bundle with free Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Visit our Facebook page, website, or service centers countrywide for more information. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
Welcome back. Now getting into our international item. With at least 9,200 cases of monkeypox worldwide, the World Health Organization says Thursday its committee will meet to decide if the outbreak is a global health emergency. Meanwhile, 4 days after Mali arrested 49 Ivorian soldiers, the mandate of the troops remains unclear despite numerous versions presented. The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Ivory Coast insisted Wednesday that the men were part of the MINUSMA, rebutting a comment by UN Deputy Spokesperson. Here's a roundup of international news.
With at least 9,200 cases of monkeypox in 63 countries, the World Health Organization said Thursday it would reconvene its emergency panel on July 21. The regional director for Africa insisted the continent faced an acute risk.
For Africa, the threat is severe. Indeed, new WHO analysis has revealed a 63% increase in the number of zoonotic outbreaks in the African region in the 10 years to 2022 compared to the previous decade. 1 in every 3 confirmed public health events in the region in the past decade was a zoonotic disease outbreak.
Monkeypox is a viral zoonotic disease, a virus transmitted to humans from animals. Recently, it has spread at unprecedented rates in non-endemic regions.
Although there's been a notable increase in monkeypox cases since April this year, compared to the same period in 2021, the positive news is the numbers are still lower than for the 2020 outbreak peak, when the region recorded its highest ever monthly cases. Following a sudden drop in 2021, 203 confirmed cases of monkeypox have been recorded in the region since the beginning of the year.
A majority of patients affected are men who have sex with men, according to available statistics. Last month, an emergency committee advised the WHO chief to wait before sounding the organization's highest alarm. 4 days after Mali arrested 49 Ivorian soldiers on its soil, the mandate of the troops remains unclear despite the numerous versions presented. The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Ivory Coast insisted Wednesday the men were part of the UN peacekeeping force in Mali, rebutting a comment by the deputy spokesman for the UN Secretary General. In order to support its 2 contingents that are in the MINUSMA, which are the Mopti Company and the Timbuktu Battalion, Ivory Coast needed, after receiving the UN's authorization and following a memorandum of understanding with the company Sahelian Aviation Services, to install a national support element in Bamako, the capital, as a forward logistic base.
Compte tenu du fait que c'est la capitale, donc comme une base logistique avancée.
The aircrafts carrying the Ivorian contingents arrived at Bamako's airport Sunday. The UN deputy spokesperson said they were deployed bilaterally by the troop contributing countries in support of their contingents. On the contrary, the Malian government considers them mercenaries which embarked with weapons of war. Ivory Coast Chief of Staff tried to explain why they were armed. Memorandum of Understanding signed with the UN allows us to hold weapons to protect ourselves and the installations that house us. The detachments are therefore deployed with their weapons, and I remind you that we are dealing with terrorism. If Mali's government intends to prosecute the 49 soldiers, officials in Abidjan called on Bamako to immediately release them. Mali decided to end the activity of the SAS, a private company contracted by the UN.
We now get into our sports item. Zambia's Sports Fan Association Peter MAKEMBO says the hard work exhibited by the Copper Queens at the ongoing Women Africa Cup of Nations is a testimony that the girls are capable of lifting the World Cup. In an interview with Camnet Sports, MAKEMBO says that notes that Wednesday game against Senegal shows that Zambia is ready to compete at the forthcoming Women World Cup, which will be held in Australia next year. MAKEMBO says the girls should, however, not relax because they have qualified to the World Cup, but that they need to push harder to win their Women Africa Cup of Nations. MAKEMBO has also urged the Chipolopolo to emulate the girls and also perform as expected in the COSAFA.
When the girls left, they were motivated by the allowances which government announced. And there it is. That allowance has motivated the girls, the outplay of the games which is running out there. That is something which we have seen ourselves to say is because of the motivation. And through that motivation, Zambia, we have gone to the World Cup for the first time. It's a history on our soil. And that's what we have been crying for. Learning from what has happened with the girls, we urge the boys also to emulate what the girls have done. Because that has been the bond too with the boys. Because the fallen heroes which perished in the Gabon disaster as per se, they were on their way to Senegal to qualify for the World Cup. So the girls, they have made a way, they have paved the way.
Well, that sports item brings us to the end of Camnet TV main news, but before we go, here are the headlines once again. PF cadre slapped with a 2-year jail term for hacking a UPND cadre. Government recruits addition 496 teachers. African countries urged to renew commitment towards Agenda 2063. And in international news, World Health Organization to reconvene emergency panel of monkeypox. And in sports, MAKEMBO anticipates Copper Queens to win the World Cup. Before we go, our Camnet verse of the day is coming from the book of Matthew 5, verse 9 to 10, and it reads, "Blessed are the peacemakers, as they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Thank you for watching. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Pleasant viewing.